Imagine walking into a room full of people, and suddenly your mind starts racing. What do they think about me? Do I look okay? Did I say something wrong? You haven't even said a word, yet your thoughts are already making noise. Now imagine living every single day like this, silently fearing what others are thinking, constantly trying to match their expectations. Imagine sitting alone after a long day, replaying every conversation. Did I sound stupid? Did they laugh at me? What if they think I'm weak? This is how many people spend their evenings. Not in peace, but in invisible arguments with their own thoughts about others' opinions. Imagine being so afraid of judgment that you stop doing what you love. You avoid speaking, sharing ideas, or even laughing freely. You hide your true self just to be accepted by people who might not even notice. Is this really how we're supposed to live? Imagine trying to please everyone, only to realize that no matter how much you try, someone will still criticize, ignore, or misunderstand you. And in the process, you lose yourself. Isn't that the worst kind of loss? Here's a simple example. A person shares a thought in a group. A few smile, one person frowns, and suddenly they spend the whole day thinking about that one frown. What about the smiles? What about their own voice? All forgotten just because of one look. Welcome to Wisdom Writings, a place where we bring calm, clarity, and the deep truth of Buddhism into everyday life. If you've ever felt trapped in the noise of other people's opinions, this video will gently guide you back to yourself. Make sure to like, comment your thoughts, share with someone who needs this, and subscribe to our channel for more mindful wisdom. And don't forget, comment Namo Buddhi below to stay grounded and positive until the very end of this video. Thinking too much about others is not just tiring, it's dangerous. It slowly erases our confidence, drains our happiness, and clouds our peace. The Buddha understood this pain deeply. That's why his teachings often remind us, freedom begins when we let go of how we are seen. This video isn't just advice, it's a path, a journey to free ourselves from the constant pressure of outside judgment. Over the next few minutes, we'll walk this path with the wisdom of the Buddha lighting the way. When the mind is restless, it is often caught in a web of thoughts about others. This is not a new struggle. It has followed human hearts since time immemorial. But why do we think so much about others? Why do their words, looks, and actions occupy such a large space in our mind? This is where the root of overthinking lies, not in others but inside ourselves. From the moment we are born, we are taught to watch what others think of us. Parents smile when we behave well and frown when we do not. Teachers praise or punish us based on our actions. Friends accept or reject us. Slowly, we learn that our place in the world depends on how others see us. The world we live in is a mirror reflecting our own fears and desires. We fear rejection, so we try to fit in. We desire approval, so we shape ourselves like clay in others' hands. This molding creates a fragile self, one that is never fully free because it depends on something outside. And that is the beginning of suffering. In Buddhism, this is called attachment to the idea of self, and attachment to how that self is perceived. When we hold on too tightly to these ideas, our mind becomes a battlefield. Thoughts of others become arrows, striking and wounding our peace. Think of a tree planted in the wind. If its roots are shallow, the tree bends and breaks easily. But if its roots are deep and strong, the tree stands firm no matter how fierce the storm. In the same way, if our sense of self is shallow and depends on others' opinions, we sway with every word and glance. But if our roots go deeper into the understanding of who we truly are, we become unshakable. Why we crave the approval of others so much? Because somewhere deep inside, we believe that their acceptance will make us whole. We believe that if we are liked, respected, or loved, then we are worthy. But this is a misunderstanding. The Buddha taught that worthiness does not come from outside. It is not a gift from another person, nor is it a prize to be earned. Worthiness is our birthright, our very nature, beyond praise and blame. It is like the sky, vast, open and untouched by passing clouds. Yet, the clouds of judgment pass quickly in our minds, and we let them darken our inner sky. We watch what others say or do, and in this watching, we forget to look inside. We become prisoners of their opinions. Our society teaches us to be constantly alert to others' views. Social media, conversations, casual glances, all these feed the mind's habit of comparing, worrying, and fearing. It becomes a cycle, a habit that is hard to break. But why is it so hard? Because the mind is not like emptiness. When we stop thinking about others, our mind feels empty, lost. It feels safer to fill that emptiness with stories. Stories about what others think, about what might happen if they disapprove, about what we should say or do to be accepted. These stories grow like weeds, taking over the garden of a mind. They block the sun and choke the flowers of peace and joy. But the Zen way teaches us to clear the garden gently, without fighting. To watch the weeds and let them go one by one. This is the practice of mindfulness. When we notice that our mind is caught in thoughts about others, we do not push them away with force. We simply observe. We say, here's a thought about what so-and-so said. Then, we let it drift away like a leaf on a stream. With practice, the grip of these thoughts loosens. We begin to see that the opinions of others are just words and images, like clouds that come and go. They do not define us. The Buddha also taught about the nature of the self. The self is not a solid thing. It is a flow, a river of moments. This means that the self that others see is always changing. Their opinions are based on changing appearances, not on something fixed or real. If the self is not fixed, why cling so tightly to what others think? This question is the seed of awakening. When we truly understand this, the need to think too much about others fades. Yet, the mind can be clever. It says, if I stop caring about others' opinions, I will become selfish or rude. But this is not true. When we stop overthinking about others, we actually open space to be more kind, more present, more genuine. Overthinking about others is often a mask for fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. When we face this fear directly with courage and compassion, it loses its power. To heal this fear, the Buddha showed the path of compassion, not only toward others but toward ourselves. Self-compassion means accepting ourselves with all our flaws and fears. It means giving ourselves permission to be imperfect, to grow, and to be free. This freedom is not a distant dream. It is present in every moment when we choose not to be prisoners of others' thoughts. It is present when we breathe deeply and say to ourselves, I am enough as I am. When the mind is free from overthinking about others, it becomes like clear water. It reflects the world without distortion. It sees others as they are, not as threats or judges, but as fellow travelers on the path. The world becomes less heavy, less complicated. We no longer carry the weight of invisible expectations. Instead, we carry lightness, the lightness of being true to ourselves. This is the root of peace. It grows quietly when we stop feeding the habit of overthinking about others and start watering the seed of self-understanding. The Zen master does not ask you to stop caring about people. Rather, he invites you to care without attachment, to listen deeply without losing yourself, to love without depending on approval. This is the middle way, the path between ignoring others and being overwhelmed by them. It is a path of balance and clarity. Each day offers a chance to practice this balance. When you notice your mind tangled in others' thoughts, gently bring it back. Return to the breath, to the present moment, to your own heart. With time, the mind will settle like a quiet pond. Then you will see clearly. The opinions of others are just passing ripples on the surface. Below, the deep stillness remains untouched. This stillness is your true nature. It is the wisdom of the Buddha living inside you. The mind often clings tightly to one idea, that I am real and solid. That I am the center of everything. This I is what many call the ego. It is the voice inside that says this is me, and it wants to protect itself, grow bigger, and be important. But the Buddha saw this differently. He said the ego is not fixed or permanent. It is like a cloud passing in the sky, or a wave rising and falling in the ocean. The ego is made of many parts, thoughts, feelings, memories, but there is no unchanging self behind them. It is an illusion, a story our mind tells us again and again. Because we believe in this ego so strongly, we build our lives around it. We think about how others see me, how I compare to others, and how I can get what I want. The ego wants to be special, to win, to be better. It fears losing, being ignored, or being hurt. This belief causes much suffering. The ego makes us react quickly, defending itself against imagined threats. It makes us jealous, angry, proud, or afraid. It traps us in a cycle of wanting and fearing. And when things do not go the way the ego wants, we feel pain deeply. But what if the ego is not real? What if it is only a mask we wear? When we see the ego clearly, we start to free ourselves from its tight grip. The Buddha taught that what we call self is actually a collection of changing parts. There is the body, the feelings, the perceptions, the thoughts, and the consciousness. None of these is permanent. They arise and fade like waves on the shore. Because these parts are always changing, the self is not a solid thing. It is more like a river flowing constantly. If you reach into the water, you cannot grab the same water twice. The river is always new. When we understand this, the ego loses its power to control us. We no longer need to protect a self that does not exist as we think it does. We begin to see that much of our suffering comes from holding on tightly to this false self. This understanding is not easy. The ego is very clever. It hides itself well. It tells us stories to keep us trapped. It says, you are this body, you're these thoughts, you are your name and your history. But these are just parts of the whole picture, not the whole truth. The Zen master invites you to look deeply, to ask yourself, who am I beyond my thoughts and feelings? Who am I beneath the name I was given? When you watch your mind quietly, you may see that the I you thought was solid is moving, changing like the wind in the trees. This insight can be very freeing. When the ego's hold loosens, you feel lighter. You stop fighting with yourself and others. You become more peaceful. The ego loves attention and praise. It wants to be recognized and admired. But the Buddha teaches that true peace comes when we let go of this craving for recognition. Instead of asking, what do others think of me? We learn to ask, who am I when all the noise is quiet? When you find this quiet place inside, you realize that you are already whole. You do not need others' approval to be complete. This does not mean you stop caring about people. It means you care without needing something back. It means you act kindly because it is right, not because you want to look good. In the Buddhist way, the ego is like a guest who comes to visit. Sometimes the guest is loud and demanding. Sometimes the guest is quiet and calm. But you do not have to let the guest take over your house. You can be the peaceful host who welcomes the guest without losing yourself. You see the guest for what it is, a visitor, not the owner. This understanding also helps us relate to others differently. When we see that their ego is also a mask, we become more patient and compassionate. We understand that their fears, desires, and reactions are similar to ours. This realization reduces anger and judgment. We stop blaming others or trying to change them. Instead, we accept them as they are, knowing they too struggle with the illusion of self. The ego creates separation. I am here, you are there. It builds walls between people. But when we see through the ego, we find connection. We see that all beings share the same nature, a nature that is free, open, and compassionate. This is why the Buddha emphasized meditation and mindfulness. These practices help us observe the ego and its stories without getting caught up in them. We learn to watch the rise and fall of thoughts like clouds passing across the sky. With patience and gentle effort, the mind becomes clearer. The ego's voice grows quieter. We begin to experience a deeper self, one that is not bound by name, form, or opinion. This self is not something you possess. It is more like a spaciousness that holds all things, thoughts, feelings, other people, without clinging or fear. Living with this understanding is living in freedom. It is living without the chains of ego's control. When you move through the world free from ego, you do not need to prove yourself. You do not need to control how others see you. You simply are, and this being is enough. This is not arrogance or selfishness. It is humble confidence rooted in truth. The Zen master tells you, practice seeing the ego as a story, not the truth. When you catch yourself thinking, I must be this or that, gently remind yourself that these are only thoughts. Sit quietly and watch. Notice how the ego's stories come and go, like waves on the ocean. The ocean itself remains calm and vast. This ocean is your true nature. When you live from this place, you are no longer bound by fear, pride, or jealousy. You are free to be kind, generous, and loving, not to gain something, but because it is natural. Each day, practice returning to this understanding. When you feel small or afraid, remember the teaching. The self is not fixed. The ego is not you. With this wisdom, your mind grows peaceful. Your heart grows open. This is the path of the Buddha, a path of seeing clearly, loving deeply, and living freely. The mind is like a wild horse. It runs fast, pulls hard, and often takes us where we do not wish to go. It carries us into worries about the past, fears about the future, and especially thoughts about what others might think. But the practice of mindfulness is like a gentle rider who learns to guide this horse with patience and calm. Mindfulness means being fully here in this moment without judgment or distraction. It is not about emptying the mind or forcing it to be quiet. Rather, it is about watching the mind closely like a careful gardener watches a growing plant. We notice the thoughts, feelings, and sensations that arise, and we let them be without pushing or pulling. When we think too much about others, our mind becomes a spinning wheel. The wheel of what if and maybe keeps turning, making us dizzy and tired. But mindfulness helps us to stop the wheel, even if just for a moment. In that pause, something beautiful can happen. Clarity. With mindfulness, we see clearly the pattern of our thoughts. We notice when the mind jumps to judgment, or fear, or comparison. We see the cycle starting, and instead of joining it, we step back. We watch. We breathe. This watching is not passive. It is an active kindness toward ourselves. When we become aware of these repetitive thoughts, we don't punish ourselves for having them. We gently remind ourselves, this is just a thought. It will pass. Thoughts about others' opinions are like clouds drifting across the sky of our mind. Mindfulness helps us to recognize these clouds for what they are, temporary, changing, and not the whole sky. The Buddha taught that mindfulness is the foundation of wisdom. When we are mindful, we no longer react automatically. We begin to respond with choice and calm. The storm of overthinking softens, and peace starts to grow. Many people believe that stopping these thoughts is hard because the mind is naturally busy. But mindfulness shows us that the mind's busyness is like noise. It can be heard, but it doesn't have to control the whole space. Imagine sitting beside a river. The water flows past with leaves, branches, and small fish. Mindfulness is like sitting quietly by the riverbank, watching the flow without jumping in or trying to catch anything. The river continues, but you remain steady and calm. In daily life, mindfulness can be practiced anytime. When you notice your mind pulled toward worries about what others think, take a deep breath. Bring your attention to the feeling of your breath moving in and out. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice the sounds around you. This simple act roots you in the present. It reminds you that right now, in this moment, you are safe. You are not trapped in the stories your mind tells. Sometimes, mindfulness shows us surprising things. We may realize that the things we fear others think about us are not even true, or that those thoughts are exaggerated in our imagination. By watching these thoughts closely, they lose their power. The mind becomes like a clear mirror reflecting the world without distortion. Mindfulness also helps us recognize when we are comparing ourselves to others. We see the habit as it arises. Instead of falling into it, we choose to turn our attention elsewhere, to our own breath, to a sound, to a feeling of kindness. This turning away is not ignoring reality. It is choosing where to place our energy. The energy spent on worry and comparison can be redirected toward peace and joy. The practice is not about perfection. Some days the mind will be busy, other days quieter. The key is gentle persistence, returning again and again to the present moment. In the tradition of Zen, mindfulness is often called just sitting. It is simply being with whatever is here now, no more, no less. When we just sit with our thoughts about others, without judgment or resistance, we open the door to freedom. The thoughts no longer control us. Instead, we learn to observe with compassion and clarity. This is a deep healing. The mind no longer needs to chase after approval or fear rejection. It rests in its own nature, peaceful, whole, and complete. Mindfulness also teaches us about impermanence. Every thought, feeling, and moment changes. The fears about others' opinions will come and go, like waves in the ocean. When we hold this truth in our heart, the grip of overthinking weakens. We learn to ride the waves instead of being swept away. Sometimes, mindfulness reveals the connection between our thoughts and emotions. When we feel hurt or anxious, it is often because of unspoken fears inside. By bringing awareness to these feelings, we give them space to be seen and understood. This reduces their intensity and softens their hold. The Buddha said that understanding is the beginning of compassion. When we understand our own mind, we can be kinder to ourselves and others. This kindness breaks the cycle of suffering caused by overthinking. It opens the door to genuine connection and peace. The practice of mindfulness also reminds us to be patient. Change does not come overnight. The mind's habits are strong, like old trees with deep roots. But with steady practice, these roots loosen. New growth appears, fresh branches of freedom and joy. Mindfulness invites us to live fully in each moment, to see ourselves and others clearly, without the heavy veil of judgment. It teaches us that true peace is found not in controlling others' thoughts, but in freeing our own mind. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to understand that the opinions of others do not define our worth. We learn to trust our own heart and wisdom. This trust brings courage, the courage to be authentic, to speak our truth, and to walk our own path. Mindfulness is not just a technique, it is a way of being. It colors every moment with awareness, presence, and love. In this way, the mind's wild horse becomes a steady companion. Together, rider and horse move with grace through life's challenges. As we deepen our mindfulness, we notice a subtle shift. The need to think too much about others fades, replaced by a gentle confidence. This confidence is not loud or boastful. It is quiet and steady, like a candle glowing in the dark. It lights the path forward, guiding us to freedom and peace. The power of mindfulness is available to all. No matter who you are or where you are on your journey, you can begin now. Just start with a breath. Just watch a thought. Just be present. In this presence, the cycle of overthinking breaks. The mind rests. The heart opens. And slowly, the heavy burden of others' opinions falls away. You stand free, strong, and peaceful, like a mountain unmoved by the winds. This is the gift of mindfulness. Praise and blame, these are two sides of the same coin. They shape the way we see ourselves and the world around us. Yet, they can be the greatest sources of both joy and suffering. When praised, the heart feels light, warm, and proud. When blamed, it feels heavy, cold, and hurt. But what if both praise and blame are like passing shadows, unable to touch the true nature of our being? In the teachings of the Buddha, there is a profound invitation to practice detachment, not from caring, but from a need to be defined by praise or blame. This detachment is not cold or distant. It is a gentle freedom that lets the heart breathe. Consider a leaf on the water. Sometimes it floats on calm waves, sometimes on choppy currents. The leaf does not control the water, nor does it fight it. It simply moves with the flow. neither clinging to smoothness nor resisting the roughness. In this way, we are invited to be like that leaf, moving with the experience of praise and blame without losing ourselves. When we hold tightly to praise, we become dependent on it. Our happiness rises and falls with the approval of others. We begin to act not from our own truth, but from what will earn us applause. This is a subtle cage, one we may not even see. On the other hand, when blame strikes, we may feel crushed or angry. We try to defend ourselves, to explain, to prove that we are not as bad as others say. This struggle consumes our energy and disturbs our peace. The Zen master reminds us that both praise and blame are appearances, like clouds crossing the sky. They come and go, but the sky remains vast and clear. Our true self is like that sky, unchanged by passing judgments. Why do we cling to praise? Because it feeds the ego, the small self that wants to be seen, liked, and admired. The ego is a storyteller, weaving tales of greatness when praised and tales of failure when blamed. But these stories are not the truth. They are reflections in a shallow pond, easily disturbed by the wind. When we learn to observe praise without grasping it, we see it for what it is, a temporary reflection. This does not mean we reject kindness or recognition. It means we do not let these things become the measure of our worth. Similarly, blame can teach us. When it arises, we can pause and listen with a quiet mind. Sometimes blame is a mirror showing us where we can grow, but often it is a shadow cast by misunderstanding or fear. In either case, if we cling to blame, we suffer twice, once from the blame itself, and again from our resistance to it. Detachment from praise and blame is not indifference. It is clarity. It is the deep knowing that our true value lies beyond words and opinions. This knowing is born from mindfulness and self-awareness. The Buddha spoke of equanimity, a balanced mind that meets praise and blame with the same calmness. Equanimity is like a strong tree standing in the storm, neither bowed by praise nor broken by blame. When we practice equanimity, we free ourselves from the roller coaster of approval and criticism. We find peace in being ourselves, no matter what others say. This practice also helps us in our relationships. When we do not depend on praise, we can offer genuine kindness without expectation. When we do not fear blame, we can accept others' faults and forgive more easily. Imagine a person who praises you. If you cling to their words, you may feel happy now but anxious later, fearing their praise will end. If you detach, you feel gratitude without attachment, a lighter, freer joy. Imagine someone blames you unfairly. If you grab onto anger or shame, you become trapped in suffering. If you release your hold, you may still feel pain, but it does not control you. You can respond with wisdom, not reactivity. This does not mean we ignore feedback or become careless. It means we hold our center firmly, allowing praise and blame to flow around us like water around a rock. The Zen master teaches that this center is found in deep awareness. When we sit quietly and observe our thoughts and feelings, we begin to see patterns. We see how praise lifts us up and blame drags us down. With this seeing, we choose freedom. This freedom is not easy at first. The mind resists letting go. It cries, "But I need to be liked. I need to defend myself." This is natural. Change always begins with gentle patience. Each time you notice yourself clinging to praise or pushed down by blame, take a breath. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Remember the leaf on the water, the sky beyond the clouds. Return to your true nature. With practice, the grip of praise and blame softens. You start to live from a place of peace, no longer tossed by the waves of others' opinions. This peace is the heart of Buddhist wisdom. It is the quiet space where joy is not earned, but simply present. Where self-worth is not fragile, but unshakable. So, do not fear praise. Do not fear blame. Meet them both with a calm mind and an open heart. Let them teach you, but never let them bind you. In this way, your life becomes a dance, not with applause or criticism, but with the rhythm of your own truth. And in that dance, you find freedom, Compassion is the heart's gentle power. It is the warmth that flows when we see another's pain and wish it to ease. Yet, true compassion is different from what many think. It is not a heavy chain that ties us to others' judgments, nor a river that floods us with their feelings. It is a clear stream, strong, kind, and free. When we think too much about others, especially about how they see us, we often lose the true meaning of compassion. Instead of offering kindness, our hearts become caught in fear, in worry about approval or blame. We want to help, but only if it makes us look good. We want to be kind, but only if we are praised for it. This is not true compassion. This is attachment dressed as kindness. The Buddha taught that compassion must be free from attachment. When we hold tightly to how others respond, our compassion becomes a form of control. We try to shape others so that they make us feel safe or worthy. But this is a trap. Compassion is not about control. It is about freedom, freedom for ourselves and for others. Imagine a lotus flower blooming in the mud. The mud is heavy, dark, and sticky, yet the lotus rises above, pure and beautiful. Compassion is like that lotus. It grows not from attachment or desire, but from understanding and acceptance. When we practice compassion without attachment to opinions, we open space in our hearts. We give kindness freely without expecting anything back. We listen deeply without judgment. We offer help simply because it is needed, not because it will earn us praise. This kind of compassion starts with ourselves. If we cannot be kind to our own mistakes, our own fears, how can we truly be kind to others? Self-compassion is the seed from which all other compassion grows. When you look at yourself with kindness, you see your struggles clearly. You do not hide from them or judge them. Instead, you say, "It is okay. I'm doing my best." This gentle acceptance softens the mind and opens the heart. From this place of peace, we can reach out to others without fear. We see their pain without being overwhelmed. We hold their suffering lightly, like a feather in the palm, present but not crushed. The mind that is free from attachment to others' opinions is like the sky after a storm. It is vast and open. Clouds come and go, but the sky remains. When you feel tempted to worry about what others think, return to this image. Breathe deeply. Remember that your compassion is not measured by applause or approval. It is measured by the sincerity of your heart. Many people confuse attachment with love or kindness. They believe that if someone does not appreciate their kindness, it is wasted. But kindness given with expectation is like a plant grown only for its fruit. When the fruit is taken away, the plant feels empty. True compassion does not ask for fruit. It blooms because it must. It is not a transaction. It is a gift. When you practice this, you find your heart becomes lighter. You no longer carry the heavy burden of needing others to like you or think well of you. Your compassion flows naturally, like a river that does not stop for rocks or bends. In relationships, this frees you from pain caused by misunderstanding or rejection. When someone does not return your kindness, you do not hold it against them. You simply let it go, like a leaf floating down a stream. This does not mean you become cold or indifferent. Quite the opposite. Your love becomes deeper because it is not tied to conditions or expectations. It is unconditional. The Buddha's teaching on compassion is also teaching on balance. We do not give so much that we lose ourselves. We do not hold so tightly that we lose others. We give with an open hand and an open heart. When your compassion is free, it touches others in a way that words cannot describe. It creates a space where they can heal, grow, and be themselves without fear. You may wonder, how can we practice this when the mind is so restless? The mind wants to cling. It wants proof that its kindness is noticed. This is natural, but it is also something to watch gently, like a child learning to walk. The practice is simple, but not always easy. When you notice your mind grasping for approval, pause. Take a breath. Remind yourself, my kindness is a gift, not a debt. With time, this patience grows. You learn to give and receive compassion as naturally as the sun rises and sets. Remember, compassion without attachment is not only kindness to others, but also protection for yourself. It keeps your heart open and your mind clear. When you give compassion freely, you become a light in the world. Others may or may not see it, but that light shines anyway, steady and true. This is the freedom the Buddha offers, freedom from chains of fear, from webs of attachment. It is a peace that does not depend on the world's approval. Practice this every day. In every small moment, choose compassion without attachment. Let it be your breath, your step, your smile. In this way, your heart will expand and your mind will calm. You will no longer be trapped by the opinions of others. Instead, you will walk your path with clarity, kindness, and quiet strength. This is the essence of true compassion, a compassion that heals, that frees, that transforms. In life, we walk many paths, but none is as delicate or as important as the path of relationships. Whether with family, friends, or strangers, how we relate to others shapes our happiness and peace. Yet, so often, we find ourselves caught between extremes, between caring too much and not caring enough, between clinging tightly and pushing away. This is the place where suffering grows. The Buddha showed us a different way, the middle path. This path is not about ignoring others or being indifferent, nor is it about losing ourselves in their opinions, feelings, or demands. Instead, it is about balance, walking gently between extremes with clarity and kindness. Think of a tightrope walker. If they lean too far to one side, they fall. If they lean too far to the other, they fall. Only by keeping their center can they move steadily forward. So it is with relationships. We must find our center and move with mindfulness. When we care too much about what others think, our mind becomes a storm. We twist ourselves trying to please, change, or avoid conflict. This constant worry drains our energy and dims our light. We become like a puppet, pulled by invisible strings, losing sight of who we are. On the other hand, when we care too little, we close off. Walls rise around our hearts, and loneliness grows. We forget the simple joy of connection, of shared smiles and quiet understanding. We may avoid pain, but we also miss love. The middle path invites us to care deeply, but without losing ourselves. To listen with open hearts, but keep boundaries that protect our peace. This is a subtle art, one that requires practice and patience. In the Buddha's time, this wisdom was taught not just in words, but in living example. He showed respect and kindness to all, but never allowed others' opinions to rule his mind. He spoke truth gently, acted with compassion, and remained calm even when misunderstood. When you walk the middle path in relationships, you learn to see others clearly, not through the fog of your fears or desires, but as they truly are. You accept their flaws and your own. You let go of judgment and expectation. Imagine holding a flower. You admire its beauty without squeezing it tight or throwing it away. You simply appreciate it as it is. This is how we can hold our relationships, with gentle care, not possession. Sometimes, this means saying no when something harms your peace. Saying no is not unkind. It is an act of respect to yourself and to others. It teaches them how to treat you and teaches you how to protect your heart. At other times, walking the middle path means opening your heart fully, listening without interruption, forgiving without conditions, loving without expectation. This openness creates space for healing and trust. But this path is not easy. Our habits of fear, control, and attachment pull us back to the edges. The mind cries out to cling or to run away. It asks, what if I am hurt? What if I am rejected? These questions can paralyze us. The Buddha's teaching offers a way through this paralysis: mindfulness and compassion. When fear arises, we notice it without judgment. We breathe into it, letting it soften rather than harden. We bring kindness to ourselves, understanding that fear is natural. In this gentle presence, fear loses its power. We begin to respond from calm, not from reaction. This change opens the door to true connection. Connection that does not bind or suffocate, but frees. When you practice the middle path in relationships, you become like water, flexible, clear, and strong. Water flows around obstacles, but never loses its essence. It nourishes and cleanses without clinging. This way of being brings harmony, not only between you and others, but within yourself. When your heart is balanced, you feel less need to control or escape. You accept the dance of closeness and distance as natural and healthy. The Buddha said that suffering arises from craving and aversion. In relationships, craving is wanting others to be different to act how we wish. Aversion is pushing away what we do not like. Both create tension and pain. The middle path teaches us to let go of craving and aversion, to see others and ourselves with clear eyes. This clarity helps us respond with wisdom rather than habit. Imagine two friends walking together. One leans on the other for support, but also walks on their own 2 feet. They share the journey, but each carries their own weight. This balance strengthens their friendship and allows it to grow. When we understand this, we no longer fear being alone or losing others. We find peace in our own company and joy in shared moments. We do not depend on others for our happiness, but we celebrate their presence. The middle path also invites us to forgive. Forgiveness is not forgetting or excusing harm. It is releasing the heavy burden of resentment. It clears the heart so it can love again. When resentment fades, the heart opens. We see others not as enemies, but as imperfect beings like ourselves. This understanding softens conflict and brings peace. Sometimes, walking the middle path means stepping back when a relationship becomes harmful. This is not failure, but wisdom. It is choosing peace over pain, self-care over sacrifice. The Buddha reminds us that peace is the highest good. No relationship is worth more than our inner calm. When we choose peace, we choose life. In the quiet moments, reflect on your relationships. Are they balanced? Do they nourish you? Do they allow you to be yourself? If not, where might you bring more balance? This reflection is not judgment, but a loving inquiry. It opens the way to change, gently and naturally. Remember, the middle path is not a destination, but a practice. Each day offers new chances to walk it, sometimes stumbling, sometimes steady. Be patient with yourself. Like the river carving stones over time, your steady effort will shape your heart and mind. In this practice, you discover that true connection does not demand losing yourself. It asks only for presence, honesty, and kindness. This is the gift of the middle path, a way to relate to others that brings peace, freedom, and love. The mind is like a bird. When it is trapped in a cage, it flutters anxiously, longing for freedom. But when the cage door opens, the bird rises effortlessly into the sky. So, too, the mind is bound by the cage of thinking too much about others. When this cage is opened, the mind soars in peace and clarity. Many people spend their lives locked in this invisible prison. They carry chains made of worries, doubts, and endless questions. What will they think of me? Will they like me? What if they judge me? These chains bind the heart tightly, making it hard to breathe freely. The Buddha showed a way to break these chains, to step out of the prison. This path is not a trick or a secret. It is simply the practice of seeing things as they are, without the heavy weight of others' thoughts pulling us down. Freedom begins with understanding. When we look deeply at our own minds, we see how often they're caught in stories about others. These stories are like smoke, clouding the clear sky of our true self. To be free, we must let the smoke clear. This means gently noticing the stories, without grabbing them or pushing them away. We watch them float by, like clouds in a vast sky. We say to ourselves, "These are only thoughts. They do not define me." This simple act of seeing is powerful. It weakens the hold of judgment and fear. It frees the heart to be calm and open. The mind also often believes that others' opinions are important because they shape our future, our success, happiness, or acceptance. But the Buddha teaches us that true happiness does not depend on others. It comes from within. Think of a lamp. When you light a lamp, the light shines from the lamp itself. It does not depend on what others say or think. Your mind is like that lamp. When it shines clearly, it is not dimmed by others' opinions. This light grows brighter through practice, through mindfulness and meditation. When we practice sitting quietly with ourselves, we learn to trust this inner light. We see that it is steady, no matter what storms rage outside. Many people fear being alone with their own minds. They think that if they stop worrying about others, they will be empty or lonely. But the opposite is true. When a mind is free from the noise of others' thoughts, it becomes full of peace and kindness. This kindness begins with yourself. To free your mind, you must first be gentle with it. When thoughts about others arise, do not blame yourself. Do not fight or run away. Instead, smile softly inside and say, "It's okay. I am here." This gentle kindness is like a healing balm. It calms the restless mind and opens the door to freedom. True liberation is not a sudden explosion. It is a quiet unfolding, like a flower opening in the morning sun. Day by day, moment by moment, the mind becomes less caught in judgment and more filled with clarity. As this clarity grows, you begin to see others with fresh eyes. You no longer see them as critics or threats, but as fellow travelers on the path. Their opinions become like passing clouds, visible but not holding you down. This is the heart of compassion, to be free yourself and to wish freedom for others. When your mind is free from mental bondage, your kindness flows naturally. It is not forced or tied to approval. It is pure and boundless. The Buddha said, "Attachment is the root of suffering." When we attach to others' opinions, we suffer. When we let go, we find joy. Letting go does not mean ignoring others. It means not letting their opinions control your peace. It means living true to your own nature, shining your own light. Sometimes, you may fall back into old habits of worry. This is natural. The path to freedom is not straight or smooth. It is like walking through a forest. Sometimes you lose the path, but with patience, you find it again. Each time you come back to awareness, you strengthen your freedom. You build stronger roots, like a tree standing firm through the wind. Remember, the mind is always changing. Today's worries will pass like clouds. Tomorrow brings a new sky. The Zen master reminds you, be patient, be kind, trust in the practice, trust in yourself. When you free yourself from thinking too much about others, you open the door to a vast world, a world of peace, joy, and true connection. This connection is not based on approval or fear. It is based on presence and love. It is the connection of a heart that sees clearly and embraces fully. So breathe deeply now. Feel the freedom in this moment. Know that you are enough, just as you are. The cage door is open. The bird is ready to fly. Step out gently. Let your mind rise. This is the great liberation the Buddha offers. Freedom from mental bondage. Freedom to live fully, freely, and with a peaceful heart.